Can you tell me your name and where you work?
Richard Harrill. I am the Director for Europe of Public Interest Law Institute, which is a human rights law organization based in Budapest, Hungary.
Okay, and what do you have to do with youth service?
In that capacity, I have very little to do with youth service. I am a board member for an organization called DIA, which is Demokratikus Ifjusagert Alapitvany, which is a Hungarian national youth service program that I helped create 10 years ago as a spin-off of some work I was doing when I was in the Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Hungary. And so I'm here as a board member of that organization, but also with the executive director.
Okay. And tell me about this National Youth Service Program in Hungary.
DIA is a service learning model that's based in high schools and a few universities around the countryside. It's in 120 or 118 cities and villages of Hungary. We work with 10 to 15,000 young people a year, 15 to 24-year-olds.
Wow.
They adapt it to the local community, so some kids are doing work on gender, others are on environmental protection, some kids are doing work with children or building playgrounds. But the common thread through most of the program is that they organize these community service projects, they motivate their peers, they bring this back into a classroom setting, a reflection, a formal reflection hour with a youth worker or a school teacher. Very few of them are getting academic credit for this, but they're doing this out of their own free time and their free will because it's one of the few things where they have an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, different sets of skills, problem solving, project management, communications. They do some wonderful volunteer projects. Parallel to that, we have a whole stream of activity that's focused on life skills development and youth employability. And there it's a little bit more formalized, where we're taking them through a curriculum with a school teacher to develop certain job skills, employability skills, and linking them up often in internships with organizations in the community so that they get a chance to practice what they're learning. And in those models, we've had very good success at getting young people who are from more disadvantaged backgrounds into full-time employment.
So you would think it'd be successful? You'd say it was successful?
It's very successful in Hungary, and I think what we're struggling with is how to transition from what initially were a lot of small pilot projects, which are now growing to involve thousands of young people. We have another stream that's working on youth and media, so kids doing video work and doing photography and interviews and documentaries around what youth do. We're supported a little bit by the Adobe Foundation for that project. But what we're trying to do is bring some cohesion and planning where these projects reinforce one another, where kids are developing life skills while doing civic engagement kinds of activities. So they're learning about human rights, but they're also learning about communications or technology or project planning. And where we can go from working predominantly with high schools into more and more university settings and get the activities that we do into national policy. And in Hungary, unfortunately, it went from no youth ministry to then a youth ministry to now there's no longer a youth ministry. And so politically, there was a real growing emphasis on what a youth ministry could do and as a leverage point for policy. And now there's no longer a ministry. It's been sort of demoted. The education ministry isn't necessarily in a strong position to support some of this. The country just recently went bankrupt. Where the IMF has had to come in to give a very large bridge
because
loan.
of the financial meltdown, before that?
They've had a 10-year problem of their debt has been growing for many years, and multiple political parties have increased the debt. So it's hard to can't blame any one individual or one party. But because of the debt crisis, there's not a lot of discretionary funds or money for innovations or ramping things up. What's interesting about this meeting is it's an opportunity to hear from other countries who have more top-down models, more established youth policies at the federal level, and how those program models exist. Because what we really worked on is that painstakingly at the grassroots level, working with 120 different communities, a lot of hard work. We figured out models that work well, but now how do you scale them up so that they're not just in 118 towns, but let's have them in every town, and where they are in a small school or they're a small part of a school setting, then how would you get saturation? I don't know if necessarily you want compulsory, mandatory voluntary service.
Like in Ghana.
Yeah, in some places that works. But I think in Hungary what we'd love to do is just make it more and more attractive while obviously giving young people the options to opt out, but giving them all the incentives to opt in.
Yeah.
And that there are leverage points that we're exploring within education systems and teacher training and admissions credits and all these kinds of things. So this conference is what I'm sensing is we're learning from some of the other European groups here that perhaps there's some consensus for an ongoing group of the European participants to keep dialogue going and to keep some momentum going and build some. Europe is an interesting platform for this because there are other processes, the Bologna process for education integration, the European voluntary service system where kids are going to live in other countries for 6 months or a year and do voluntary work. So maybe there are other opportunities to build on those other systems to have a more, I would say, some sort of organized dialogue where there's a plan coming out.
Collaboration.
Some sort of systemic solution to some of the common problems that we're probably all facing.
Anything else you'd like to add?
It was a very impressive meeting. I think that while there's a wide range of some people are at a very high level they've got established programs or established policies and they've got a lot of experience, and other people might be coming in at sort of a younger, more basic fundamental level. But it's nice to be able to see the range, because then you have a sense if you're an up-and-comer, if you're the youth start at Cambodia, that you can see or imagine or dream of where your program might be going. And I think it's always healthy in even more established settings where you think where you've come from and how you started off as some sort of innovative project and what was the driving passion and impetus for these things to get up and running. And sometimes the more growth you have, the more reach you have. Sometimes you actually you lose something of the spirit of what actually got the whole youth service movement going in a particular country. But that's not a bad thing because you're reaching more kids and more people are having those opportunities. But it loses a little bit of the pioneer spirit. So it's nice to be around the pioneer spirit.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.